It surely was nice of Roxy to come home to have her babies, I remarked to Louise. I just wish she could talk so that I wouldn't have to guess what's going on in her head. On the other hand, from the sound of her growls, maybe I wouldn't want to hear some of the things she is thinking about me. Oh, I think she'll calm down before long, Louise said, setting some plates and silverware on the kitchen counter. You might get some glasses for milk and arrange these on the table while I take up the food. Well, I hope she gets over her grouch pretty soon. It's getting to be quite a problem trying to distract her attention long enough to shove her meal inside the gate without getting bitten. As soon as she hears me coming, she dashes toward me, growling like a bear. I arrange the things on the table. We have another problem, I continued. Should we take Roxy's babies away from her and raise them on bottles in order to tame them? Or should we let her take care of her family in her own way? Well, Luis returned, do you think we would be better parents than Roxy is? I don't know, but I'm afraid she'll make them as wild and vicious as she is. Maybe she will never let us make friends with her babies and handle them. Why don't we leave the babies alone for a while and we'll see how it works out, Luis suggested. One day, Roxy's babies made a lot of squealing inside the cottage. One of them fell out the door to the ground, about 8 inches below. Roxy, who was out in the yard, became excited at once. She rushed over to where the baby lay, looked inside the cottage, and sniffed the baby. She hesitated a moment, as if trying to decide what to do. Then she picked up the baby in her mouth and took it back inside. Suddenly the noise stopped, and for several days I didn't hear another sound of trouble. What a wonderful mother! How I wish I knew what she did to let those tiny creatures know they shouldn't quarrel and fight. Finally, I decided the time had come to see if I could get acquainted with Roxy's babies. I made a panel with a door in it. This panel hung in such a way that it could be lowered by a rope in front of the cottage. One day when Roxy was busy in her yard, I lowered the panel, shutting her out of her home. Then I opened the back door of her cottage and saw four little balls of downy fur. Roxy came on the run and sniffed nervously around the strange door. Having satisfied my curiosity about the number of babies and seeing that they looked sleek and well, I closed the back door and lifted the panel. Roxy dashed inside the cottage to see if her babies were all right. Soon she came back out, apparently convinced that I had not heard anything. I felt things were going to work out well, after all. Soon we were handling the babies as much as we wanted. Of course, we had to shut Roxy out and take the babies out through the back door. Although Roxy growled and acted as if she would like to tear into us, we learned to disregard her temper. At first, I was worried that she might take out her anger on her family, but she never did. Before long, Roxy ceased to pay any attention to us when we handled her babies. She went right on eating or whatever she was doing in the yard. However, she did not stop trying to attack me when I came near the front of the cage. I would slip her dish of food inside the gate and close it quickly. She would leap through the air with a growl and land on the gate. As time passed, I could tell that her fury was easing and suspected that it was an act she enjoyed playing. Once, while she was still clinging to the gate, I poked my finger through the wire. She sniffed at it without making any effort to bite it. One evening after a day's work, I drove my tractor into the yard. I glanced toward Roxy's cage and was alarmed by what I saw. One of the quadruplets was slowly walking across the wire roof of the cage. How could it have escaped? If one was out, the other three could get out. Roxy must already be out, probably beyond my reach, high in a tree. Hurrying over to the cage, I discovered that three of the youngsters were huddled in a corner. They were watching their sister walk across the wire, probably wondering what they should do. I looked up at the huge cottonwood tree that grew near the cage, and there was Roxy, in a crouch high above us. No doubt she had been directing the prison break. I slipped quickly inside the cage and closed the gate behind me. I pulled one of the youngsters out of the corner and put her inside the house, dropping the door to keep her in. I did the same with the others one at a time. That had been easy, but I was not sure how I was going to manage the mother high in the tree, or even the fourth daughter, which was on top of the cage. I remembered that once, when Roxy was quite young, Robert had pulled her out of a tree. She had given him several nasty wounds on his arm. Now she was 4 years old, a mother trying to lead her babies to freedom. I wasn't about to go up the tree after her, but Roxy solved the problem in her own fantastic way. She loved freedom, but she loved her babies more. When she saw what I had done to upset her plans, she began backing down the tree. As I stepped outside the gate and closed it, I saw that Roxy had reached the ground and was barely 3 paces away, running toward me. I grabbed a shovel to use as a shield and began backing off. Roxy kept coming. I couldn't tell whether she wanted to attack me or was just trying to see if I was hurting her babies. I had read about a man stalked by a lion, but I had never thought of a person being stalked by a raccoon. I didn't really know what to do. I circled slowly back toward the gate, keeping the shovel between Roxy and me. As I passed the gate, I swung it open. Without a moment's hesitation, Roxy sprang through the open gate and dashed across her yard toward the cottage. I quickly closed the gate. Now only one baby was still on the outside. The beautiful little creature walked across the top of the cage toward me. I picked her up gently and carried her around to the back of the cage, put her inside the cottage through the back door. Then I lifted the front door with the rope and Roxy bounded inside. Now all 5 raccoons were safely back home. Found a small opening at one corner of the roof and repaired it. With the excitement over, I realized what a wonderful example of mother love I had just seen. Here was a little animal who dearly loved her freedom, but who chose to give it up for the sake of being with her babies.